Today we got a story time of a Minecraft kid who thinks SCP-096 is out to get him. Leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing, subscribe, and let's get right into it. So we're going to call the subscriber who sent in today's story, we're going to call him Ryan. Anyways, this all happened on one Friday night. Ryan was playing some Minecraft as he usually did. And you know, he was playing some doubles in Minecraft or whatever, and he was just queuing with random people. It also just happened to be kind of like a rainy and stormy night out, and it was getting dark kind of early. It was that time of the year, and kind of the atmosphere was just a little bit spooky. But anyways, right, you know, Ryan was playing some Minecraft doubles, and he was just queuing with random people who wanted to play with him. And, you know, normally, right, you know, people would sometimes just quit immediately. Some people would, like, not be very good. Some people would talk to him and be nice. But then there was this one guy who queued with him. And there was just something strange about his username. And, you know, Ryan doesn't exactly remember his username, but he just remembers that something about, you know, this guy's username just made him feel a little uneasy. And it was like when Ryan was sitting in the generator getting resources. If you don't know, in Bed Wars, right, you try and protect your bed, and you also get, like, gold and iron and stuff to, like, you can sit in your bed to get gold and iron, and, like, you get resources to get blocks or whatever. Kind of irrelevant to the story. But when, like, Ryan was sitting there getting resources to build a protection for his bed, this player that queued with him would just be, like, staring at him. His character would, like, just be staring at his character. It was just very weird. It was just very strange. It was just a little bit creepy. And anyways, right, after the game, you know, Ryan and this guy actually won. No one else in the party or no one else playing that round of Bed Wars was very good. And Ryan was pretty good, and the guy he was playing with was actually surprisingly decent for, you know, a random person he queued with who was acting kind of strange. Like, he was surprisingly pretty good at the game. And anyways, right before Ryan was about to hop into another Bed Wars queue to play again with another random person, he received a party request from this guy. And Ryan was thinking to himself, all right, like, that's, you know, it's a little strange. This guy's a little weird, but he's also pretty good. Like, I would like to win some more games. If you don't know, in this Minecraft mode, if you party with someone, that basically means that you can play with them or on the same team as them. And anyways, right, so Ryan, you know, he accepted the party request because he's thinking to himself, all right, like, why not? And anyways, right, so Ryan was about to go, and he asked, like, oh, do you want to play another game? Because in the party, you can, like, chat with each other. He's like, oh, do you want to play a game? Like, we make a pretty good team, haha. And the guy who he teams with doesn't respond right away. And Ryan's just a little bit weirded out by that. He's like, okay, this is a little bit strange. I don't understand. And then he gets a message in the party chat from the other guy, and it says, do you want to know the truth? And at this point, right, Ryan was feeling a little freaked out. He was feeling a little weirded out. He was a little uncomfortable with what was going on, but at the same time, right, he was just kind of like randomly playing Minecraft on a Friday night just because he was kind of bored. And this definitely felt like this would, you know, either scare him, maybe, but it would most definitely cure his boredom. So we responded, yeah, sure, like, what's up? So after a second of waiting, you know, the guy that, you know, Ryan had queued with responded, do you know the legend of SCP-096? At this point, right, you know, Ryan was, like, somewhat, like, into, like, he was on the internet. He wasn't, like, not on the internet at this point. And the thing is, though, right, you know, Ryan just didn't know anything about, like, creepypastas and, like, and anything like that. He didn't know about, like, internet, like, horror stories or whatever. So he had no idea about anything about, like, SCP Foundation or any of the other SCPs. So he responded, no, I don't know what that is. So Ryan, you know, responds, no, he doesn't know what that is. And, you know, after a second of waiting, right, he finally gets the first message saying, message me on Discord. And then the random guy that Ryan queues with gives him his Discord as well as his Discord, like, number, whatever, however you add people on Discord. By the way, I have a Discord server. You should join it in the description. Anyways, right, so he adds him on Discord, and Ryan is really interested at this point because he's like, I'm no longer bored, to say the least. Like, he's also aware of, like, stranger danger, and people on the internet are probably weirdos, so be careful. But at the same time, man, like, he wants something interesting in his life, dude. He wants something interesting happening, and this is the definition of something interesting. So anyways, after, you know, a minute or two, Ryan eventually gets the ad back, and the guy starts typing. He's like, so, do you really want to know about the legend of SCP-096? And sure enough, you know, Ryan is like, yeah, like, what is it? I don't know what that is. The guy says, all right, Let me give you a little bit of a backstory. And by the way, this backstory or this explanation of SCP-096 will not be exactly like whatever the relevant lore is, because this guy wanted to like alter like the internet legend a little bit just to scare Ryan a little bit more. So don't eviscerate me in the comment section. I'm just reading what I've been told over DM. By the way, if you want to submit a story, Instagram is in the description. That's how you submit them. Yeah. So this guy starts to explain over Discord to Ryan that SCP-096 is a monster that was captured by a special unit of the government, also known as, the SCP Foundation. And he said the only reason that he knows about this happening is because there was a leak of this on like the dark web or the dark internet. Basically, if you ever want to spook someone, to say, ooh, darknet, ooh, the deep web, and everyone's going to be like, ah, even though it's mostly just like databases and files, but whatever, right? He's like, there's a leak on the dark web. And I was one of the few that was able to see it. And apparently, right, the government is housing this creature. And along with the leak, there's an image. So he drops an image in chat. And it looks something along the lines of this. Obviously, he chooses an image that's a little bit less video gamey. But anyways, right, he puts the image in chat. He's like, the legend is, right, this creature, anyone who sees this creature's face, the creature will start to like scream and wallow or whatever. But then after about a minute or two of screaming, it'll just go on a destructive rampage and he will destroy anyone who sees his face. And also he makes this terrible high-pitched scream, while he's doing it. At this point, right, Ryan's starting to feel a little bit uncomfortable because like he has this sense that like this is like all fake or whatever, because I think Ryan's like, I'm going to make the assumption he's like 12 or 13 at this point. So he has a feeling this is all fake, right? But at the same time, right, it's still a little odd. It's still a little bit creepy. And the guy that Ryan messages goes on to say like, yeah, by the way, I forgot to let you know one thing. And Ryan's like, oh, what's that one thing? He said, anyone who sees his face at SCP-096 will be after. And Ryan's like, oh, okay, like, why did you have to specify that? You already said it. And the guy says, oh, yeah, by the way, it doesn't have to be his face in person. It can simply be a photo of his face. And at this point, right, Ryan is starting to like, even though he doesn't totally believe this, he's starting to feel this kind of like feeling of like, oh my God. Like, and Ryan starts typing and he's like, is the image you showed me, is that a real image? Real quick, comment SCP down below in the comment section so I can see who made it this far into the video. I'll be trying to heart as many comments as I can that comment SCP down below. But if you want a better chance of getting a heart, because I can't heart them all, comment it maybe 2 or 3 times. There's a better chance I'll see it and a better chance you'll get a heart. Even if you don't get a heart, just know I really do appreciate you watching. But anyways, right, so Ryan types in the Discord chat, is this image like a real image of him? Because he's starting to realize that if what this guy is saying is true, which he's like, oh, I don't believe it, but if, right, he kind of does believe it at this point, but like, if what this guy is saying is true, like, he just showed him an image, right, of SCP-096. Like, this is basically a death sentence. And the guy Ryan was talking to on Discord responds, yes, ... Your time is limited. And at this point, Ryan's like, he's like, wait a minute, why isn't your time limited? If you had this photo on your desktop and you sent it to me, that definitely means that like you saw this image. So Ryan thought like, oh, I got him, ha ha ha, or whatever. And the guy responds, oh, you don't understand. I've never actually seen this image. I downloaded software that scrambles every picture of this image so that I will never actually see it. And after the guy says this, Ryan just has this weird sinking feeling. Like, he still doesn't totally believe it, but the story was, like, detailed and scary enough that, like, he was just feeling it. And at this point, Ryan, instead of, like, engaging anymore with this guy on Discord, he simply just unadds the guy in Discord, blocks him, logs on the Hypixel, removes the guy from his friends list, gets out of the party with him, just tries to disconnect from this guy, deletes the chat on Discord, like, just tries to forget about everything that, was happening. And for a while, right, Ryan was successfully, he just forgot about, like, the whole SCP-096 incident, right? He just didn't even think about it, because he was just, like, back on Bed Wars, just queuing random people, and, like, he didn't queue this guy again for, like, the rest of the night, so that's not what happens. However, right, if you do remember when the guy was explaining what happens, like when the SCP guy goes on like a destructive rampage, he makes this like wailing sound, the screeching, screaming, wailing sound. And if you guys don't know, if you live with foxes, foxes will make this really loud screeching wailing sound late at night. And I know this because where I live, there's a ton of like foxes that roam around at night and they make this like screaming sound. It actually was really scary the first time I heard it. And the thing is, right, where Ryan lived, there hadn't been foxes that lived there for years. So like Ryan, like he does remember in retrospect that that happened many years ago, but it took him a while to remember that. But anyways, in the moment, he was just sitting there playing some Bed Wars, playing some Minecraft, right? Just like chilling, having a pretty good time. And he's sitting there and he's mid-game. He's just queued with some random guy. And he hears this screeching sound coming from outside. And the thing is, right, it's the sound of the foxes. However, he's not thinking about foxes. He's thinking about what this random guy on Discord told him about what the SCP-096 does when he's on his like destructive rampage and when he's coming for you. And it sounded exactly like that. And because of this like coincidence, right, this guy like was obviously going around trying to scare people, and there's not a chance he could have known that like this guy lived with foxes. It was just a really terrible coincidence, right? But the fact that like after seeing the image and he hears the exact sound, the scary sound that he was told he was going to hear, Ryan just like freezes in his chair and his heart starts racing so fast. And he just like gets out of his chair, goes to his door, slams it shut, locks it. And his mom is just like in the other room and is like, Ryan, is everything okay? And he's like, yep, everything's good. I'm good. And legitimately for the rest of the night, like he didn't go to bed till like 5 in the morning when he just like could not stay up any later, right? He stayed in his room, lights on. He just sat up in his bed. He didn't even like lie down in his bed. He sat like straight up vertically in his bed for the entire night until he fell asleep forcefully at like 5 a.m. And when he woke up, he was like woke up in a panic because he was sure that like the SCP-096 was about to be right above him, right? And honestly, for the next couple weeks, like Ryan was like terrified. After about 2 weeks, Ryan decided to face his fears and look online to see if there was any information about SCP-096, and that's when he realized the whole thing is like an internet joke or an internet hoax or whatever, and that yes, no, SCP-096 is not out to get him. Subscribe if you haven't already, drop a like on the video, and then go watch one of the 4 videos on screen right now, or go watch an old video. Either way, you'll support the channel. Thank you. Today we got a story from a subscriber who said this kid he knows claimed that the SCP Foundation was real and that his dad actually worked for it. Leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing, subscribe to the channel, and let's get right into it. So we're going to call the subscriber who sent in the story, we're going to call him Brian. And by the way, if you want to send in stories, send them in either to my Instagram or my Discord server. Both are linked in the description. Anyways, right, so this story happened one day when Brian was at lunch and he was sitting down with some of his friends. And then this guy that he didn't really know that well. And, you know, he talked to him once or twice, but he just wasn't really friends with this guy. And we're going to call this guy Steve for the sake of giving him a name, right? So Brian was sitting there with his friends when Steve came up and sat down, and they looked over and they were like, hey, like, what's up? How's it going? And Steve was like, pretty good, pretty good. And then Steve just started eating. And, you know, it was kind of like a weird encounter, but they didn't really care. So, right, you know, Brian and his friends go on. They're talking about whatever. Everyone there is enjoying, like, food or their lunch or whatever. And then Steve says, hey, you guys want to hear something that just is really weird and I just can't get over? And Brian's like, yeah, sure. And Steve says, I don't know how to put this, but my dad works for this organization, this secret government organization. And Brian, you know, who doesn't know this kid that well, is, you know, intrigued, and, you know, his friends are probably intrigued too. So Brian's like, oh, all right, yeah, tell me about that. That sounds interesting. And Steve kind of looks around, kind of looks over his shoulder and is like, you can't tell anyone about this. And the thing is, right, Brian, he's a little suspicious because he's like, all right, why is he telling me? Like, what's the point in telling me? Why would he even say this if this was true? But he's like, you know what? Anyways, I'm just interested to hear what Steve has to say. So Brian's like, all right, man, like, I think we're good. I don't think anyone's listening. Like, what's up? And Steve is like, all right, I found this out one day when, my dad, who claims to be a lawyer, right, he came back from work one day and my mom seemed really worried and I was a little concerned because I heard them talking and I heard them like yelling and being all like upset or whatever. So I snuck out of my room. I walked down the stairs and I walked down the stairs just enough so that I could hear what they were talking about, but not enough so that, I couldn't hear what they were, so that they couldn't see me. So I was hidden, but I could hear what they were saying. And Brian was like, all right, okay. Steve goes on to say that, he was hearing from like his mom saying like, I don't want you to like go on with this project. Like, the government has no right to make you do this. We don't want to put your life in danger. So after those words, like I realized it's something that, my dad probably didn't work for the government, or that my dad wasn't a lawyer because he said that he was, was in private practice and that he never worked for the government. So hearing now that the government was putting him in danger with his next job really did confuse me. But then my dad went on to say, that, he had to do it as it was his patriotic duty for his country. And Brian at this point was like, even if like what he was being told wasn't true, like he was like, all right, well, tell me about this. And Steve goes on to say, all right, well, after I heard that, I kind of like ran back up to my room because I heard my parents start to walk up the stairs and I didn't want them to know that I knew anything. So I pretended like I was in bed, and my mom came into the room to check to see if I was actually asleep or not, and I did a pretty good job pretending that I was asleep, because it looked like she came in, looked at me for a good like 30 seconds, and then quietly closed the door. After that, I got out of bed, and I leaned up to the door as closely as I could so that I could try and hear, or at least try and make out what I was hearing outside. I heard, my mom and my dad in their room, and they were talking. I couldn't make out everything, but I heard snippets of a conversation. This was the important thing that I heard. And before Steve said what he thought was important, he looked up at Brian and the other people there, and he's like, honestly, it's like really stupid of me to tell you guys, like, I just don't really have any friends here, and, we had a few good interactions. I just needed to, like, tell someone about this. I can't keep going with this, like this knowledge kept to myself. He said, you gotta promise me that you don't tell anyone. And, Brian, who's interested in the story, is like, don't worry, dude, like, we got you, like, if this does, like, even if, like, this isn't, like, true or whatever, we just won't tell anyone, like, it's fine. Steve's like, dude, it is true, but I get why you don't believe me. And he goes on to say that the most important thing that he heard was his mom saying that, like, my dad should retire from the SCP Foundation, and that, like, the government said that he could retire at any time and he'd be given, like, a great compensation package, and then he can't really say anything about it. That's part of the deal. Like, apparently, like, you get really smart scientists, really smart people on cases, you pay them handsomely, and then they don't talk about it. And she said, the SCP Foundation, the U.S. government said that they would, like, you can leave at any time, and as long as you sign, like, 1 billion NDAs, you'll be paid totally fine. You can go on and do whatever you wanted. Didn't you want to, like, go sailing, right? Isn't that your passion? I'm sure you'll have enough money to do that. And then Steve says, and I'll never forget what my dad responded. And he said, my dad responded to her, like, yes, that does sound nice, but I would never be able to live with myself if I didn't see this case to the end. After this point, right, Steve didn't really hear anything else besides, like, the talking was a bit more mumbled. He didn't really hear anything else clear, and then eventually the conversation ended, so Steve went back to his bed. He only was able to sleep for, like, 2 or 3 hours that night because he was just trying to process what he was hearing. That, one, his dad was not actually a lawyer, and in fact, he worked for the government. 2, he worked for, like, a secret part of the government, that was apparently called, like, the SCP Foundation, and 3, that he was working on a project that was apparently super dangerous and that he felt like he had to see it out or he wouldn't be able to morally live with himself. That's a lot to, like, put on someone. And, like, as Steve is saying this, like, Brian looks at him with this look, and he's like, I think I've heard of the SCP Foundation before. Isn't that, like, some kind of, like, internet thing? And Steve goes on, like, all right, I'll explain that in a second. Like, let me finish. And Brian's like, all right, man, like, okay, like, no objections. I just want to let you know I heard that before, like, if this is some kind of elaborate prank. And Steve's like, no, I'll explain that in a second. Just give me a second. Brian's like, all right, man. So Steve goes on to say that, for a couple days he was just thinking about it, and that he went online and he looked up SCP Foundation and he found, like, a wiki about it. He saw a bunch of YouTube videos about it. So at this point, right, Steve was really, really confused because he was like, oh, like, this is an online thing, like, what? and he's looking into it, and everywhere it said that, like, oh, this is fake, like, this is, like, an internet thing. But he was just really, really confused by all this. So a couple days later, both his mom and his dad were out. He was about 16 at the time, or he is 16 by the time, like, he is 16, since this happened very recently, right? You know, he is 16, so he says that, like, you know, he was able to stay home when both of his parents left. Steve then goes on to tell Brian that, you know, he waited for the day when both of his parents were gone, and then he went into his parents' room. And he was just going through everything. He was shuffling through stuff, and it took him a long time, and he couldn't find anything. And then he got to his dad's drawer. He opened it up. There was a watch. There was a wallet. There was a passport. There was a couple, like, crumpled up dollar bills. There was, like, a tie clip or something. There was some scratch paper. There's some business cards. Nothing that seemed out of place. But then Steve was like, all right, if I'm going to hide something here, where would I hide something in every single movie, in every single, like, TV show? Or, like, what is, like, the place to look for? So first of all, Steve looked under the bed, nothing there. Steve was, like, tapping on the walls, right, to hear if there's, like, a fake wall or something. Steve even went to, like, a little bookshelf they had and pulled out every book, like in Scooby-Doo when you pull out a book and the thing, like, opens up or something crazy. Steve then goes on to say that at this point, he was basically done, like, looking through until he remembered, like, in one of the TV shows or whatever, about a false bottom when it came to drawers. So he returned to his dad's drawer and kind of looked around it, looked under it, and that's when he saw, like, a little hole, like a little thing. And he saw next to, like, in his dad's drawer, a piece of chalk that really just kind of seemed out of place at that point. And he took out the piece of chalk, and the circumference of the chalk was the perfect diameter for this hole. So sure enough, he placed the piece of chalk under the desk, pushed it up, and it was enough to reveal that there was a fake top. At this point, right, Steve realized that he was in really deep. And at this point, he was like, all right, I got to make sure that I don't, like, I got to leave everything the way I found it. So he undid the fake top, put everything up. He was, like, constantly checking to see, or he was telling Brian that he was constantly checking to hear if, like, he heard his dad coming back or anything that would have alerted. And he was looking for, like, fake, like, wires or pieces of tape or something that would, like, if you break them and you don't notice, like, the person will notice. Like, if there's a piece of tape and you break it, and, like, you can't replace it, right? So when someone comes back and they see the tape is broken, it means someone was tampering. He didn't see anything like that, and that's when he went through the files. And it looks like through the files, right, he had, like, there was a case file. And this case file was on something called SCP-096. And he was reading the introduction, and the introduction says SCP-096 is some kind of creature that, you know, in summary, when someone sees its face, they will pass away, right? And it will go and attack them. And it also said the SCP-096 existence has leaked to the internet. However, through a serious, like, disinformation campaign, they've pumped out actually an enormous amount of content on SCP-096 to make it seem as if it is just something on the internet. The document said that originally leaks of SCP-096 existence were, like, leaked to the internet. However, they followed it up with, like, hundreds of thousands of pieces of content, like, of, like, fan art of it, of, like, stories of it, of, like, animations of it, to almost create an artificial, like, creepypasta, like an artificial wave of traction. It's almost as if, like, there was a report of a zombie and then, like, all the zombie movies came out. You just wouldn't believe it because of all the other kind of, like, fake stuff surrounding it. So it's almost like a massive disinformation campaign. And the summary ended with, like, you know, we have not obtained SCP-096. We do not know where he is, and he is, like, a top-level threat of danger. At this point, right, Steve is reading through this when he hears a car pull, like, back into the driveway. At this point, he starts to panic. He starts to freak out, but he also knows he's telling Brian that, like, he needs to, like, put this back just perfectly. So he goes in, he puts the files down as he saw it, he puts the thing down. You know, he puts the keys, the desk, everything back in the order he saw it, as well as a piece of chalk. And then he also dusted off the hole where he placed the chalk up to remove the fake bottom, just so it didn't look like someone was just there. He leaves the room. He makes sure everything looks the same. He leaves the room as the door was opening downstairs. And it was Steve's dad saying, hey, Steve, like, how's it going? Like, just back from lunch, like, with my friend. Hope all is well. And Steve's like, yeah, things are good. And so so Steve is like, all right, and that's happened as of yesterday. And he's telling Brian. At this point, right, Brian is looking at him. He's like, all right, there's a lot of detail here. And he did answer my questions. However, this is still ridiculous. Like, no way this is true. And the thing is, right, this happened only a couple days ago. Well, that's what Brian said. Brian sent me the story over on Instagram. And the thing is, right, Brian doesn't believe Steve. He thinks that Steve is just trying to, like, get some attention. And also, like, why would he tell Brian or whatever? But Brian just sent me this story to tell on the channel. He doesn't actually believe Steve, but he thought it was pretty entertaining. And I read it, and I thought it was really entertaining, and I thought you guys would enjoy. Subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a like in the video, then click one of the 4 videos on screen or any other video to support the channel. Today we got a story time of some kids who think SCP-173 is actually real and unfortunately out to get them. Yeah, not even kidding. Leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing, subscribe, and let's just jump right into it. So today's story is about the subscriber who sent in today's story. We're going to call him AJ, and his friend Daniel. I got both these names from the comment section, so leave a comment of any name you want me to use. This happened when they were both in 3rd grade. So AJ, the subscriber, he had an older brother, and AJ and Daniel were pretty close friends. So one day in 3rd grade, AJ and Daniel were both, hanging out together, and they were both at AJ's house for, like, some kind of play date, right? And anyways, right, AJ's older brother was in 6th grade, and AJ's older brother had spent a lot of time on the internet, and he found the urban legend of SCP-173. So his brother was bored, AJ's older brother, and he noticed that AJ and Daniel were downstairs, and he thought, I'm kind of bored, man. Let me play a prank on AJ and his friend. So anyways, AJ's older brother walks downstairs. And sure enough, right, AJ and Daniel are just kind of sitting there. I think they're, on the couch playing, I don't know, Lego Star Wars or something. So the thing is, right, AJ and Daniel have access to, like, some video games. Like, the parents allow AJ and Daniel to have access to, like, for example, some Wii games, maybe Minecraft, I don't know, some, like, very low-key games. However, they're not allowed online. So AJ and Daniel would have no idea about any of these urban legends, and AJ's older brother knows this to be the case. So AJ goes down, and he's like, hey guys, how's it going? He doesn't want to seem suspicious or anything, so he just kind of goes down and sits down. AJ's mom then walks into the room and tells them that, she's going to the grocery store, and if they need anything or if there's any problem, just to tell AJ's older brother to contact her because he has a phone and he has her number, whatever. But anyways, that she won't be gone for long, and if they need anything, just to contact her. So she goes out, gets into her car, and drives off. And AJ's older brother turns to AJ and Daniel. He's like, guys, I need to talk to you for a second. I needed to wait until, mom was gone. And AJ kind of looked at him, really confused, and he's like, okay. And, he pauses the game. I'm assuming it's Lego Star Wars, not like some kind of like live game or something where it's like you're playing with other people where you can actually pause it. But anyways, right, AJ and Daniel turn to him and they're just kind of like, oh, what's up? And AJ's older brother's just like, man, there's just something on my chest, and I have to tell you guys, it's for your own safety. It's for your own good. At this point, right, AJ and Daniel were very disinterested because they're just, oh my God, like, what's it? What's the problem? And so AJ's older brother looks at them and says, all right, you can't tell anyone about this, but you need to know. Do you know my friend Ben? Once again, I'm using the name Ben. Sure, we'll go in the comment section, meme me, whatever, I don't care. Anyways, he's like, so you know my friend Ben? And so basically, right, AJ's older brother had a friend, Ben, that he knew for a while, but then Ben had to move to, like, Las Vegas for some reason, right? And AJ and Daniel are looking at him, and AJ says, yeah, Ben, didn't he have to, like, move, like, a year ago? And AJ's older brother says, yeah, Ben had to move. And he said it was for, like, his parents got a new job, but that wasn't the case. And AJ and Daniel both look at AJ like, oh, what happened? And AJ's older brother goes on to say, so Ben has an older brother himself. And Ben's older brother, right, no one knew about this, but he was working for the government. And he was working for a very secret part of the government. And AJ and Daniel, like, this catches their attention, man. I mean, someone they used to know or someone AJ used to know, it was like his older brother's working for the government. So AJ's older brother says, yeah, my friend Ben, his older brother, he used to work for the government. And it was on a very, very top secret mission that they had in Las Vegas or Las Vegas, Nevada or whatever, right? And, AJ and his brother and Daniel are like, oh, what happened? And AJ goes on to say, or AJ's older brother goes on to say, so basically, This is what Ben told me. Ben was telling me that his older brother worked for a secret organization for the government that was keeping control and studying this thing they found. They called it SCP-173. And at this point, right, AJ and Daniel were just like, oh my God, what is going on? And AJ's older brother goes on to say, yeah. And then Ben, he was telling me about how he was telling me about this creature and how it works. Essentially, right, it's like this inanimate object thing. It's like made of stone. And it sits there, right? And it has to sit in this like confinement cell, but they have to go clean it every couple of weeks. And the thing is, as long as someone is looking at it, it can't hurt you. But the second someone is not looking at it, it will game end everybody in the room. And AJ and Daniel look at him, just like so kind of like scared and confused at this point. And AJ's older brother goes on to say, yeah. And then Ben was telling me that, it got out. And at this point, AJ and Daniel were like, ah! And AJ's older brother's like, it gets worse. It gets worse. He's like, also, I was able to get a photo of it. And the thing is, right, AJ's older brother, he went online, Googled SCP-173, took a screenshot, and he pulls out his phone. He's like, guys, all right, you can't tell anyone I have this photo as it's super classified. And like, I'm not even supposed to have it. Ben's not even supposed to have it. Ben's older brother told him not to share it to anyone. So the fact that I have it is like, we could be on a watch list or something, but I need to show you what it looks like just in case you guys see it. And so AJ's older brother showed them more or less a photo like this. I just grabbed it off the internet myself. And at this point, AJ and Daniel are like, oh my God, is Ben's older brother okay? And, AJ's older brother says, yes, but he only barely escaped. Apparently, right, when the two guards that were watching SCP-173, they blinked at the same time, and then they both got destroyed. And he just escaped, and he made his way, destroying every single person in the organization. And I don't know how Ben's older brother made it out, but I think he saw on the cameras, and he just alerted everyone, and he just got out barely. But they don't know where SCP-173 is anymore. And apparently, right, he's been going across the country, and he's been going on this linear path. Ben's older brother told me about this. AJ's older brother then goes on to explain that apparently Ben was telling him that SCP-173 has been, like, spotted attacking people, and they've been tracking it. Ben's older brother has, in the United States organization that's been in charge of, like, trying to, like, contain it and figure out where it's gone, has been tracking the attacks, and the attacks have been like all happening in a very linear pattern, and it was pointing, or at least the pattern, the line looked like it was about to go through the state that, AJ and Daniel lived in. I don't want to say what state it is. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but whatever. It's important to know that when AJ's older brother was explaining it, he was trying to say, like, oh, the attacks are coming right at us. Real quick, comment SCP down below in the comment section. Comment it maybe 2-3 times if you want a better chance of getting a heart, because I'll do my best to heart as many comments as I possibly can, but I don't have a ton of time. And also, just don't take it personally if you don't get a heart. I still really do appreciate you watching the video and leaving a comment. And by the way, if you want to submit stories like this, do so to my Instagram on screen, and also give it a follow, even if you're not going to go submit stories. Anyways, back to the story. AJ and Daniel are just super scared after this point, and AJ's older brother, thinks he's pretty funny. He thinks he's hilarious, right? And he's like, all right, guys, I'm really glad I told you that. I also showed you the photo. If you see SCP-173, I'm just telling you, you guys can't look away. Back away slowly, and then when you have a chance, run. He said, but don't worry, the odds of this actually happening are like less than 10%, obviously giving really high odds of that happening. Like 10% chance of like a big scary monster coming after you is still pretty bad. So he's like, oh, there's probably only a 10% chance this happens. And AJ and Daniel were not like calmed down by hearing that there's only like a 10% chance, obviously, right? Anyways, this story is actually unlike any other story I've ever told on the channel because it is a multi-year long story. So anyways, immediately after AJ's older brother telling them AJ and Daniel were like super freaked out. And, they really had trouble going to bed, for actually quite a long time. Like, for weeks and weeks, if not months after that, AJ and Daniel would, like, have recurring nightmares. They would be in bed and they would, like, be sitting there and they'd hear a noise and be like, oh my God, it's SCP-173. He's actually after us. Like, he's here. When, he wasn't here because he's not real. Knock on wood. I don't know, man. No, but seriously, like, for weeks and weeks and months, they were having nightmares, they're having terrible dreams, and they were really freaking out about it. And also, at this point, they still had no access to the internet. Years later, this is why I said that this story is unlike any other story I've ever told on the channel, because the stories I normally tell happen within maybe the span of like a day or 2 days and at most a week. But this story happens over years. So years later, I think it's maybe 1 or 2 or whatever, and finally AJ is granted access to the internet. His parents were like, all right, you can go online, that's fine. We have some restrictions in place. And one of the, AJ says he kind of has forgotten about the whole SCP thing. Like, he thinks about it once in a while and he gets scared, but it's not really, like, as bad as it was, like, for the following weeks after he was told about it. So he's online, and he's watching YouTube videos, and he's learning all about that. And then one day, a couple weeks after he's given access to the internet, AJ's sitting there, he's like, wait a minute, I wonder if there's anything online about SCP-173. And he looks it up, and he starts doing, like, research and clicking to websites and such, and he realizes that it's an internet legend. It's not even, like, first of all, it's not some top secret thing that no one knows about. There's, like, 1 million page results. He's like, what? And then he looked into it, and it's, like, an internet urban legend with, like, animations and video games and such. And at this point, right, AJ was kind of mad. AJ was kind of upset because him and, Daniel, they were scared for weeks. They couldn't sleep for months over this thing. So, AJ goes upstairs, confronts his older brother, and his older brother is just straight up like, yeah, I was just trolling you guys. AJ's like, dude, I was so freaked out. AJ's older brother's like, yeah, it was a good troll. It worked. So the next day rolled around and AJ found Daniel in school, and AJ was like, Daniel, and then he explains everything. And by the end of it, Daniel was basically in tears because he was so happy because unlike AJ, who kind of forgot about it, Daniel was thinking about it like every single day. Like, he was still freaking out about it, and Daniel's like, man, you don't know like how much better my life is now. Subscribe if you haven't already, drop a like on the video, and then click on one of the 4 videos on screen right now, or watch another video to help the channel. Peace. Today we get a story time of a kid who says the talking Ben is real and wants to eat him. No, you heard me right. The talking Ben wants to eat him. Leave a like on the video to claim your free nothing, subscribe, and let's get right into it. So the subscriber who sent in today's story, we're going to call her Paige. I got that name from the comment section down below. But anyways, right, so this happened pretty recently because, like, Talking Ben was an app that was very popular a while ago, but it's kind of, like, resurged in meme culture and internet culture more recently. So anyways, right, Paige, she's in 4th grade. And anyways, right, so, Paige was in class one day, and she has this kid in her class. And this kid is known for being, gullible. I guess gullible is the best word to say, or at least easily fooled. I don't really know. We're calling this guy Trevor, right? So anyways, right, Paige has this, she's kind of friends with, we're going to say friend, we're going to round up. So Paige has this friend in her class named Trevor. And one day, Trevor comes into class and just looks at Paige with this look of pure terror, and Paige is really confused. And, throughout the entire class, right, Paige was looking over at Trevor and seeing how Trevor was all, like, scared and nervous and having this kind of look on his face of, like, oh my God, like, just kind of like, he wasn't, like, sweating profusely or anything, but Trevor was sitting there and was not having a good time. It was as if something, like, really scary was happening and that he was, like, really freaking out. So after class, right, was recess, and, as soon as class ended, Trevor, Paige went up to Trevor and said, hey, like, you're looking a little scared, like, is everything okay, Trevor? And Trevor looks at Paige, and Trevor's like, Paige, you're not gonna believe me. And Paige already knows, like, oh boy, something is coming. And, Trevor looks at Paige, and he's like, I downloaded the Talking Ben app yesterday, because it was on the internet, and, I don't know what happened, but, Ben started having a conversation with me, and I know that's what he's supposed to do, but it was like he was actually talking to me. He was saying more than yes and no, And, Paige looked at him, and Paige is like, Trevor, Talking Ben is an app. You're good. And Trevor's like, no, Paige, you don't understand. Like, he was really talking to me. Yeah, he might have just been saying yes and no, and then hanging up the phone. But, like, it was, like, more than anything I've ever seen. And then I asked him a question. Ben, are you real? And he said yes. And then I asked him a question. Ben, are you really real? And he said yes again. Paige, I don't know what that means. And Paige, even though they're both in 4th grade, just looks at him and is like, Trevor, that app is randomized. That happens. Trevor's like, no, because then I asked him another question, and I asked him, I should not have asked him this, but I asked him if he's going to come after me, and he said yes, and then I closed the app. I couldn't do it anymore, and Paige is just looking at Trevor like, bro, you're really freaking out. You're really sweating. You're profusely sweating, freaking out, just, not having a good time in class because the Talking Ben app said yes 3 times in a row. Are you serious, my guy? And Trevor's just looking at Paige, like, still obviously very scared and upset. And Paige is like, Trevor, you know what? I'll promise you that Talking Ben is not real. And Trevor's like, okay, I guess I'm feeling a little better now. And anyways, right, they cross path, or not they cross path. They go their separate ways. Paige hangs out with her friends at recess. They go back to class. And honestly, Paige thinks nothing about it again. Flash forward about 2 weeks later, and this kid in their class has a birthday party. We're going to call this kid Ben, because in every single video, whenever I need another name and I don't have one written down from the comment section, by the way, leave a comment of any names you want me to use in a future video, I just use Ben. It's my go-to name. Anyways, right, this kid in their class, Ben, was having a birthday party, and they were both invited. And, anyways, Paige shows up. She's pretty excited because, I don't know, man, whenever there's a birthday party, I was pretty excited. You got free cake. You had free fun activities. Sure, you had to show up with a present or whatever, but my mom always handled that anyways. But, she was pretty hyped. It was birthday party. It's fire, right? So she gets there, and she doesn't expect what's going to happen to happen. Trevor becomes a problem. I'll explain why in just a second. Anyways, right, so the party itself was actually pretty fun. Paige, Trevor, Ben, and everyone else there was having a pretty good time. It was a laser tag party. I remember I went to a laser tag party when I was a kid, and that was, like, the most fun. Dude, I would do it again, and I'm, like, 19 right now. I would do it again, honestly. But anyways, right, it was a laser tag party. They're having a lot of fun. And then it was finally time to, get cake and, have the presents. And that kind of happened in a separate area outside of the laser tag area. And so Ben's mom was thinking, oh, I can probably bring my dog because, like, I don't know, like, I can't bring the dog into the laser tag area, obviously, but I can probably bring my dog into, like, the cake eating zone, the present zone. Like, that's totally fair enough. So they're sitting there, and, right, this dog is super docile. This dog is just, like, a little fluffy thing that, like, kind of, like, waddles around. But it kind of looked like Ben. I'm going to be honest. Wait a minute, this is going to get really confusing. Okay, it looked like Talking Ben. It didn't look like Ben in the story. Oh, God. I'm messing this up. And anyways, right, so Ben's mom brings out, the dog. And when Trevor sees it, he's like, Ben! And Ben looks over, right, like the actual kid Ben having the birthday party and is just, like, really confused. And then Trevor gets up and sprints out of the room. And obviously, right, Ben's mom is like, oh my God, like, what happened? Is he's, like, really afraid of dogs or something? So the whole party has to be, like, put on hold. And, like, Ben's mom has to go over and try and find, Trevor. At this point, right, Paige, remembering the conversation she had with Trevor, like, a couple weeks ago, is like, oh my God, there is no way, dude. You cannot be serious. But yes, he was serious. But anyways, right, Paige is like, I think I know what happened. Let me go with you. And Ben's mom was, like, not going to say no because she really wasn't sure what was going on. So she's like, all right, that's fine. Come with me. So anyways, right, Ben's mom and, Paige, they start walking around and they're trying to figure out where did Trevor run off to? Where on earth did Trevor go to? And this whole thing was taking place in a mall. And so, unfortunately, Trevor could have gone to, like, so many different places. So they start, like, walking around the mall, and, Ben's mom starts getting a little nervous because, like, I mean, she's kind of responsible for these kids, and one of them just like ran out under her supervision. Yeah, sure, you could say it wasn't really her fault, because how would she know? But at the same time, man, it's still her responsibility in a sense. Real quick, comment Ben down below if you made it this far into the video. I'm going to be trying to heart as many comments as I can, but because I don't have a lot of time, you'll have a better chance of getting a heart if you comment Ben maybe 2 or 3 different times. Anyways, back to the story. So right, at this point, it's Ben's mom and Paige. They're walking around the mall, and they just honestly have no idea, like, where Trevor went. And Ben's mom is, like, kind of thinking to herself, all right, do I keep looking for this kid, or do I go back to the other kids? Because, there's a bunch of other kids in the mall that are now, or not the mall, but in the pizza place of the laser tag area that are now unattended, that are under my supervision. Should I just call, like, the mall police or whatever? And as she's thinking this, as Ben's mom is getting super worried, right, Paige yells out, like, look, I found him. So Paige yells out, Trevor! And then, Paige and Ben's mom start running towards Trevor. And Trevor sees Paige and Ben's mom coming towards him. And, Paige is really taken aback because Trevor starts running away from them. And at this point, Paige is really confused. But then she realizes that Trevor probably, sees Ben's mom and associates, the dog. And just is like, oh my god, the dog must be with her too for some reason, and is running away. So at this point, right, Ben's mom is like, why is he running? Why is this little kid running away from me? Why is he, being such a problem on my son's birthday? Totally, valid response, too. He really is being such an issue on her son's birthday. And anyways, right, Paige is like, all right, I'll go after him. And, Paige is able to run a lot faster than Ben's mom, just because, I don't know, that's just how it is. And Paige is also a lot faster than Trevor, so Trevor's running down, the mall, is, sprinting, but sure enough, right, Paige is faster, catches up to him, it's like, Trevor, stop! And, she's, right next to Trevor, so eventually he does stop, and, Paige is like, what are you doing? And he just looks at her, and his eyes are, full of tears, and he's like, I went on the Talking Ben app. And she just rolls her eyes. She's like, no, dude, why? And he's like, I went on the Talking Ben app right before the party. And I said once again, Ben, are you real? And he said no. And she's like, what? He said no, then why are you scared? And Trevor's like, well, I needed to be sure, so I asked again. And he said yes. Oh my god. And at this point, she's like, oh my god. And then he's like, and then I asked if he was going to come get me at the party, and he said yes, and I powered down my phone, and I just sat there, and I didn't even want to come, but my mom forced me to come. She said that, I have to go show support, and that I can't be scared over nothing, and I got here, and everything was good, and I was having a fun time at laser tag, and then I saw him. I saw Talking Ben, and I just had to get out of there. And Paige looks at him, and she's like, Trevor, do you remember what I told you earlier? And Trevor thinks back, and he's like, yeah, you said that Talking Ben wasn't real, but I saw him today. And Paige is like, Trevor, that's Ben's dog. And Trevor's like, oh. At this point, right, Ben's mom catches up to both of them. She's like, Trevor, what are you doing? And Trevor just kind of looks at her, and, Trevor at this point is super embarrassed because he's starting to realize, how ridiculous his actions were and how we kind of, stole the spotlight away from Ben at his own birthday party. And Trevor's like, I'm sorry, I can't explain. And Paige, looks at Ben's mom and kind of just gives a nod as to say, we just got to let it go. We're good now, but we just got to let it go. And Ben's mom's like, oh, okay, fine, but you just can't run away again like that. So they walk back to, the main party room, and everyone is, really confused, because, everyone just, ran out. And when Paige and Trevor walk back in, sure enough, right, all the kids are there, and they're playing with Ben's dog. And at first, Trevor just has, stops in his tracks. And then Paige just looks at him like, dude, you got this. You're good. And sure enough, right, Trevor, thankfully, does not run away again. And, proceeds to join everyone else. And afterwards, right, Ben's mom comes up to Paige and is like, I'm sorry, can you just explain what happened today? And then Paige basically goes and explains the exact story I just told you guys. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Drop a like in the video and then click on one of the 4 videos on screen right now / watch an old video to support the channel. Peace. Today we go to story time of a Minecraft kid who tries to impress the new girl in class with the fact that he has aliens in his basement. I don't know, man. But anyways, he gets exposed in front of everyone and it's pretty hilarious. So sit back, relax, leave a like on the video to claim your free nothing, subscribe to the channel, and let's just get right into it. So the subscriber sent in today's story. We're going to call him Brian. I got the name from the comment section down below, so leave a comment of any names you want me to use. Anyways, right, so Brian was telling me about, you know, this new girl who came into class, and we're going to call her Claire. So normally, look, there's always, like, new kids moving in, but it's still a rare enough occasion that it's, like, it's a big deal, especially since Claire didn't come at the beginning of the year. She came, like, 2 months into the fall, I guess, semester or trimester. I don't know what section, like, or what they're on, right? But they're in 5th grade. Just all the context you need. So anyways, right, on the first day, the teacher says, all right, class, we have a new student. I'd like you to, meet Claire. Claire, is there anything, you'd like to, say, or, do you want to introduce yourself? She's like, yeah, hi, guys, my name's Claire. I'm from insert, originally from insert place very far away. I recently moved here and, I'm starting here in the school system. Everyone's like, hi, Claire, nice to meet you, whatever. So pretty standard. Claire goes to sit down and there's also another kid in this class and we're going to call him Benny. Let's just call him Benny, right? And, while he did play a lot of Minecraft, he was mostly known as, the Minecraft kid because of the same creeper shirt he wore every day. I mean, dude, maybe this kid was like Einstein and had, 6 pairs of the same shirt in, pants to wear every day. But, dude, I'm just going to make the assumption that, man was not running the washing machine every single night. He just kind of came in the same shirt, maybe washed it once a month when it started to, crystallize from the sweat and gamer juice. But whatever, man. Benny, he was an interesting kid. And it wasn't just the sweat crystallized gamer t-shirt he wore every single day. He had quite the personality as well. But I'm going to leave that to the story. Anyways, right, so they were in class. Claire sits down. Benny, Brian, and all the other students were sitting there listening to the teacher go on about something. And finally, right, class ends and it's lunchtime. And so Brian goes over to sit with his friends. And, he's kind of friends with, a mix of, girls and guys, which I always think is pretty cool. Personally, out of my 5 best friends, 2 of them are girls. So I got, a 40% best friend girl to guy split. I totally love it, dude. Being friends with, a different gender, you just get a different experience, and it's really cool. Anyways, though, Brian was friends with, girls and guys. So Claire, trying to be outgoing, get to know people, she sat down with this group of people and she's like, hey, my name's Claire. I mean, you probably know that from me being introduced earlier, but my dad just changed jobs, pretty suddenly. And I'm here now and I just got enrolled in the system. If you want to tell me about you guys or anything like that. So they start going around. Brian explains, his friends explain who they are. They introduce themselves. And then the kid, Benny, just was sitting at a different table, gets up with his food, comes over and sits down, which, at first kind of just seems like, he's trying to be cool. He's doing a nice thing, trying to make the new person feel good, I don't know, give them some company. That's a pretty cool thing. Except the way he executes it's a little strange. He sits down, he's like, hi, my name is Benny. Do you want to hear about a secret of mine? And bro, Brian and the other people at the table just look at each other like, oh, dude, you can't be serious, dude. This guy is already on his stuff already. Dude, it's been a couple hours since she got here. At least make her pretend like we're normal, bro. Stop, please, bro. But sure enough, right, Benny's like, do you want to hear my secret? And Claire's just like, okay. And he's like, you're totally not going to believe this, but there are actually aliens in my basement. And Claire's just like, bruh. In her head, she's like, bruh. But then she's like, oh, to be polite. Really? And Brian looks at Benny. He's like, dude, what are you talking about? And Benny gives him this look like, bro, stop. Don't blow my cover. He's like, oh, yeah, they're aliens in my basement. I was checking this morning, and I found some aliens down there. Pretty crazy. And, bro, Brian and all the other people at the table were just looking at him with, wide mouths, just what is this kid on? And Claire, who's trying to be polite, part of her thinks oh, maybe this kid's trying to prank me or something, or maybe he's just full of it. Well, option 2 is probably the one. But she's like, oh, Isn't that nice? And then Benny, instead of just like leaving it there, is like, if I can prove I have aliens in my basement, will you go on a date with me? At this point, right, Brian and all the other kids are just like, bro, shut up. At this point, right, Claire just kind of sits there like, what is going? And Brian says, all right, like, Benny, let's not ask these questions. That's very weird and strange. And Benny's like, I think you're just a hater who doesn't believe in the aliens. And Ben, you know what? Brian's like, yeah, actually, I don't believe in the aliens. And at this point, right, Benny's like, oh, I got to defend myself. He's like, you want to make a bet? You want to make a bet on the aliens? And Brian's like, I'll make a bet with you on if there's actually aliens in your basement. Sure thing, yeah. Benny's like, prepare to lose. How much money do you want to lose? And Brian's like, how much money do I want to win? Let's put $5 down. And look, this is 5th grade. You might not be thinking like $5, whatever, right? I mean, $5, you can get a pretty nice like Subway sandwich with that. But anyways, right, $5. It was a big deal back then too, even bigger than it might be now. So, you know, Brian was like, all right, sure. Yeah, $5. And Benny's like, all right, fine, $5. And Claire's just sitting there like, bro, you got to be kidding me. And Brian's like, all right, well, let's see some proof. And Benny's like, all right, we'll be here tomorrow, and I'll come with some proof. And Brian's like, all right, well, we all at the table have to agree that it's actually proof. And Benny is like, you guys will be so shocked. There's no way you can prove otherwise, so I accept. And Brian's like, all right, bet. Quick $5. And in Brian's head, he's like, all right, quick $5. Got Claire out of this awkward situation. I'm just straight up winning today. There's no question about it. So Benny goes on to say, all right, guys, we'll just be here tomorrow at lunch, and I'll show you indisputable proof. Make sure to bring the $5. Brian's just like, all right, bro, I'll be here at lunch. Sure thing. And Benny's like, fine, see you then. And he gets up and leaves. And Brian immediately turns to Claire. He's like, I'm so sorry. He does not represent us, man. Like, we're all normal. I'm sorry he said that weird thing and then proceeded to ask you on a date. Like, that must have been super uncomfortable. And Claire was like, I mean, a little, but it was also kind of funny. And, you know, Brian's like, you don't have to sit here tomorrow. We won't take it personally because we know he's coming back. And Claire's like, nah, dude, what are you talking about? I want to see these alien photos. So Brian immediately knew, like, Claire was super fun. Like, she was going to be chill. She's going to fit in just fine. And Brian's like, all right, like, just be prepared. He probably is going to have something up his sleeve, and let's just hope it's not directed at you again. And she's like, all right, I can take it. Like, to see the the quote-unquote alien photos, I'll do anything to see that. So anyways, right, the next day rolls around. Real quick, if you made it this far into the video, comment alien down below. I'm going to try and drop some hearts on these comments to say that I appreciate you guys watching, because if you watch videos like more than halfway through, it really helps me out. And if you don't get a heart, I'm just really busy, and I still appreciate you either way. Anyways, right, next day rolls around. And Brian and his friends, as soon as they get out of class, like, they're waiting in class with like 5 minutes left on the clock, and they just can't wait, man, because they're just excited to see what Benny brings in and how it's going to be. Like, he's going to get clowned on so bad for bringing in something that is going to prove that there's aliens in his basement, right? Yeah, I mean, hey, man, we all know that's going to be cap. But anyways, you know, the bell rings and Brian's like, let's go, boys. And all of Brian's friends come up and, like, they all start walking over. And, you know, Brian goes up to Claire and he's like, are you ready? And she's like, dude, I'm so ready for this. So they go over to the table, right? They sit down and they're waiting for Benny. And, dude, Benny doesn't show for like 5 minutes, and they only have like 30 minutes to get lunch. Bro, I'm not sure if it was just me, but for some reason, my middle school, my high school, they never gave you enough time to eat. I'm trying to digest. I'm not trying to feel sick after lunch because I get like 3 minutes to pummel down my food. Bro, chill out. I'll have plenty of time to study, whatever, right? So they're sitting there, and they're just like, where's the kid? Is he not going to show up? Is he just not going to eat? Like, what's the deal here? Anyways, right, so they're sitting there, and they're waiting, and eventually, Benny, like, you know, they see Benny, and they're like, oh my god, finally, the kid's here. So Benny sits down, and Benny just has this smile on his face. And for a second, Brian's like, all right, well, I know for a fact that there's no aliens in his basement, but what if he is, like, proof that I can't dispute? Even if it's not real, like, what if I can't dispute it? I really don't want to give this guy $5. because he just said I had to convince him like that, or I can't prove it wrong. So Brian was a little nervous for a second, and Benny's like, all right, I'm glad you've all gathered around. Finally, you guys will see the indisputable proof that there are aliens in my basement. And I shall receive $5 from Brian and a date from Claire. And Brian's like, hey, yo, that was not part of the deal. And Claire's like, all right, that's fine. And Brian kind of was taken aback for a second because he's like, in his head, he's like, dude, I know you don't want to go out on a date with this kid. And I know you're just putting it in because it's like funny and you think that there's no chance. But what if he has good Photoshop skills? You don't know this. But anyways, right? Benny's like, all right. Pulls out his phone. He's like, look at this and weep. Or get super scared because that's how I'd react to aliens personally. And sure enough, like they take the phone and they all look at it. And as they're all looking at the photo, Brian, Claire, and his friends all burst out laughing. And right, Benny's taken aback. He's like, why are you laughing? And Brian, trying to like get his words out in between his wheezes, is like, bro, did you not think any of us ever saw the movie Alien before? Alien was a pretty popular like alien movie. And Benny just looks so embarrassed at this moment because like bro really came into lunch with his definitive proof being a screenshot from the Alien movie trailer. That was his definitive proof. I'm not even kidding. And so Benny gets up all embarrassed and like grabs his phone and gets up and walks away from the table. And Claire like turns to Brian and is like, dude, you're not going to get your $5 because Benny didn't give him the $5. And they're assuming that at this point he's too mad to. And Brian's just like, bro, at this point, like I already won. This is my victory. This is my prize right here. This moment is my celebration. Subscribe if you haven't already. Drop a like in the video, and then if you want to support the channel, click on one of the 4 videos on screen or watch another one of my videos. Thank you. Today we got a pretty goofy story of this kid who thinks that his dog is talking Ben. Yes. No. And not only that, but when his dog disappears one day, he thinks that his dog didn't just simply run away, but he thinks that his dog no-clipped into the Backrooms. This kid has seriously been on the internet way too much. Leave a like in the video to claim your free nothing, and let's call today's subscriber. Let's call her Murphy. So anyways, right, Murphy has a cousin. We're just going to call her Murphy's cousin, right? So anyways, right, this all happened one day, or this story started one day when, Murphy was, like, hanging out with her cousin. Her cousin was kind of much younger than her. Murphy was in, like, 8th grade. Her cousin was in, like, 2nd grade. So her parents, like, they decided to, go see, like, I don't know, like, go see their cousins, go, like, hang out with them, whatever, right? And they live pretty close, so it was just kind of like a walk away. Anyways, right, Murphy was there. She's just, talking to her little cousin, and her little cousin, had a dog. And this dog, we're going to call him Ben. Nah, we're not going to give the dog a name, but if we would have called him Ben. And anyways, Murphy's kind of just sitting there and chilling, hanging out, right? And, her cousin comes up to her and says, like, that, like, my dog is, like, talking Ben. And Murphy's like, what does that even mean? And her little cousin was like, well, I was on the internet and I was seeing this dog, and it looked my dog like my dog, and my dog, it was talking to me. And Murphy's like, dude, what do you mean your dog was talking to you? And the cousin was like, oh yeah, I was asking him questions and he was giving me answers. It was crazy. And Murphy's like, okay, like the thing is, right, Murphy's not gonna pop the bubble of her little cousin. Like, okay, whatever, he believes something goofy. Okay, I'm sure the dog isn't actually talking to him, or at least I'm gonna believe that the dog isn't actually talking to him. I don't know, man, maybe the dog actually is pulling a Martha Speaks or something and is actually talking to, like, her cousin. Maybe there's, like, a chance. No, there's no chance the dog is not talking to her cousin. But Murphy's like, okay, like, your dog is talking Ben, I guess. Like, that's totally cool. And the cousin's like, yeah, it's pretty cool. My dog's pretty famous. Everyone online's talking about talking Ben. And at this point, right, Murphy's like, yeah, your dog is pretty famous. All right, that's pretty cool. And anyways, right, so she eventually goes back home, doesn't think anything of it. And then her mom calls her downstairs, and she's like, Murphy, like, I know we just saw your cousin a couple days ago, and because, like, it was kind of like a trip to go see them, because, like, you got to go see your family. You got to go, like, even if it's not fun, you got to go see them sometimes. And anyways, right, Murphy's mom's like, I know we just saw them, like, a couple days ago, but, your cousin's dog is lost. His mom just reached out to me saying that, like, they woke up one day and the dog was gone, and like they don't know what to do, and like they need as many people as they can to help go search the neighborhood for the dog. So Murphy's kind of like, all right, like whatever, like not totally how I want to spend my Saturday, but you know, it's their dog, and you know, like, that's probably pretty distressing for them. Sure, whatever, I'll go search it for them. That's fine. That's totally okay. If roles were reversed, I'd wish they'd do the same for me. So right, they get to the cousin's house, and the cousin's mom like looks at Murphy's mom and is like, "Oh, thank you so much for coming. I'm so sorry to take you on your Saturday." Murphy's mom's like, "No, it's no problem at all. Like, we know how much that dog means to you. Like, we know you do that for us. Like, 100% like whenever you want to go." And like the cousin's mom's like, "All right, we're waiting for a few more people to come, but within like 5 or 10 minutes we're gonna go outside to scour the neighborhood, look for our dog. Thank you so much for coming again." Anyways, Murphy's mom and Murphy's cousin's mom were talking, and then Murphy's cousin like comes up to Murphy's like, "Murphy, I need to talk to you one-on-one." And Murphy's like, "Okay, yeah, what's up?" Murphy's cousin's like, "Murphy, I know what happened to Talking Ben." And Murphy's like, "Dude, do you mean like your dog?" And he's like, "Yeah, same thing, whatever, right? He no-clipped into the back rooms." Murphy's like, "Dude, what does that mean?" Because look, Murphy doesn't know what that means, dude. Murphy doesn't know what that means. I mean, she knows what that means now, but at the time, she was just looking at him like, "Dude, what are you even saying? What are the words coming out of your mouth?" And Murphy's cousin looks at Murphy like, "Oh my God, do I really need to explain all of this? We're wasting so much time. Ben needs to be saved." Murphy's like, "Dude, I don't know what the back rooms are. Is that like a place like in the neighborhood? Like, is that a place in like your basement or something? Can we go look there?" He's like, "No, I was talking to Ben." And by the way, like the cousin had started to refer to their dog as Ben, even though the dog's name was like Charles or something. But he started to refer to him as Ben because he was like convinced that he was like the dog that he was seeing online, and that his dog lived like a second life or something. He was like, "I was talking to Ben, and I was like, 'Ben, do you know about the back rooms?' And Ben totally said yes," which, I mean, like the dog probably kind of barked or something, which the cousin took as yes. But anyways, he's like, "I was talking to Ben about the back rooms, and I was like, 'Are they real?' And you know that Ben said yes. And I was like, 'Are you gonna get stuck in them?' And then he barked and he said yes, and then all of a sudden he's gone." And then like, you know, Murphy sees his like her little cousin starts like crying or whatever. So she's like, "All right, I can't be a jerk and be like, 'Dude, what are you even talking about?' I need to be sympathetic and help him find his dog, even though it's obviously not even in like whatever the back rooms are. Obviously he's not there. He's just like lost or something, but you know, whatever, I gotta be nice to my little cousin, fair enough." So Murphy goes over to a little cousin, like kind of like, you know, gives him a hug, like, "Don't worry, we'll find him, like, you can count on me." And you know, the cousin's like, "Murphy, the back rooms are very dangerous. I don't want you to get stuck in there as well." Real quick, a comment the back rooms or just back rooms down below if you want to heart on your comment. I'll be hearting as many comments as I can that I see that say the back rooms. That's the secret word of the day. Turn on notifications, join the Discord, it's in the description. Send in stories to my Instagram, also in the description. Anyways, back to the story. And Murphy's just like, "Don't worry, we'll find him in the back rooms or not or whatever." And you know, the cousin's like, "Do you know about the back rooms?" And Murphy's like, "No, I just don't know what that is." He's like, "Okay, I'll explain. It's a different reality that is parallel to ours." And Murphy's just like, "Oh, so it really is this made up. All right." She didn't say that out loud, dude. Her cousin's emotional. Her cousin's an emotional wreck right now. She's not trying to like go in there and like stir stuff up. But she, in her head, she's like, "Dude, all right, so this just isn't real, I guess." So anyways, Murphy's like, "All right, well, either way, we got to go down and find your dog." So Murphy and her little cousin, they walk down the stairs. And, you know, Murphy's mom and her mom, or the cousin's mom, is like, "All right, guys, like, you know," and some other people in the neighborhood showed up. "All right, guys, let's go on a search party. We're going to go find Charles. Like, we'll go find him." So they go outside. They start walking down the neighborhood. So they start walking down the road, and they're yelling, like, "Charles, Charles," we're like kind of like yelling out the name of the dog. And Murphy's cousin is yelling out, "Ben." And the cousin's mom keeps looking back like, that's not his name, dude." And anyways, right, so the cousin and Murphy, you know, they kind of like, they all decide to split up into smaller groups to try and make it more efficient. So the cousin and Murphy decide to go into their own group, and some other people are in their other groups, whatever. So they're walking around, and they pass by this like bush or whatever, and the cousin stops and he's like, Murphy, and like Murphy turns around and she's like, dude, what's up? And you know, the cousin's like, no, and jumps and literally tackles her, and she's like, dude, what are you doing? And he's like, you almost no-clipped into the back rooms. And Murphy's like, dude, legitimately, what are you talking about right now? And he's like, I don't know, but I could feel it. So Murphy, who's on the ground right now after being slide tackled by her cousin, is like, dude, like, I think we're fine. I think we're good. Let's just meet up with the main group and see if they found anything. So, you know, Murphy and her cousin start walking, and her cousin is, like, starting to get really sad. Her cousin started, like, you know, you could see he's starting to cry a little bit. Murphy's like, dude, don't worry. We're going to find your dog. And the cousin's like, once you're in the back rooms, you never come out, man. We're never going to see him again. It's like, as the little cousin is saying that, like, you know, Murphy's like, oh my God, look. And it's Murphy's mom and the cousin's mom, and they're walking towards them. And who do they have on a leash? It was their dog, Charles. And Murphy's cousin yells out, Ben! And runs towards him, and like both the cousin's mom and Murphy's mom is so confused why like their cousin, like the little cousin, is saying Ben to Charles the dog, but they literally don't care. They're just so excited because like the little cousin is beyond happy and just so happy to see his dog again. And you know, he goes up to him, he's like, oh my God, I'm so happy you escaped the back rooms. And Murphy's mom is like, bro, what? And Murphy's and the cousin's mom is just like as confused, but it's like, whatever, it's fine. Like, we're reunited.